The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The show is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee, and if you like to attend our meetings, they're the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to find out more about our organization, you can go to nashuagop.org to see our website and learn about the events that we have.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and welcome to People's View, and help me welcome Mayor Donchess.
Carl, it's good to see you.
Jim, it's nice to see you again. I
haven't
really
been on
appreciate
your
the
show
time.
for a few months,
Yeah.
so it's good to be back.
Maybe that one helped you get elected. I don't know.
I think it did push me over the top, yes.
Well, good. Well, you've been talking about the state of the city to everybody. Now you can tell our audience about it. How do you like it? I mean, you've been in there for, what, 5 weeks now?
Yeah, I've been in office a little more than a month, and so there's a lot going on. People, of course, often ask me what it's like to be mayor again, and they're, you know, many of the basic responsibilities are the same, helping to run city government. I think the economic challenges are different because when I was mayor before in the 80s, early 90s, the city was growing very rapidly. Now we need economic development across the board because the city and the state have basically remained at the same population for quite some time. Number of jobs in Nashua is about the same as it was before the Great Recession of 2008. So I think we need to focus on a number of economic development opportunities, and certainly that's kind of a different situation than what I faced before.
Well, you have a cap, too, on the budget that you have to worry about. It's kind of tight this year.
We do have a cap, and so the budget process will begin when I propose the budget, which will be in early May. And from there, the Board of Aldermen consider it and ultimately pass the budget, usually by the end of June or early July.
Well, the one that we've heard about already is the Board of Education and what numbers they're talking about, and they seem to have a serious problem.
Well, they're looking at different budget numbers, and they're looking to improve education, which of course we want to have as good as we can. But I think we need to maintain the current level of services, meaning the city has cut quite a few teachers over the last few years, 65 to 70. Enrollments are down, but not very significantly. And so, my goal is to maintain at least what we have in terms of educational quality. I would love to make some improvements, but I'm not sure, given the constraints on our revenues and the like, I'm not sure we can undertake that this year.
Well, it's going to be kind of hard. I mean, they're looking at kind of, I guess, things that are a little bit hard to believe, but privatizing some of the services and stuff.
The school board is looking at privatizing custodians, meaning putting that out to bid. That's not something I believe. I do not believe that's a good idea, because I think the custodians, there's 101 families depending on these jobs. They've worked for the city for a long time, many of them. And the custodian in each school, the custodians are part of each school community. They get to know the kids, so they do more than just sweep the halls or something like that. And they, of course, make it possible for the after-school, all of the after-school activities, biddy basketball, when we hold public meetings, all kinds of things going on after school. So in my opinion, it would not be wise to privatize.
Is there enough savings? Is anybody estimating what kind of savings they're looking for?
Well, they've gotten in some bids.
Yeah.
So the school board, the school department is examining those. Now, I should make it clear that the mayor has really no authority in this area. That under the city charter, the school board decides all questions concerning schools, but except for the bottom line of the school budget. And there, the mayor and board of aldermen set the bottom line. But beyond that, how that money gets spent and who does the custodial services and everything else concerning education is decided, and the school board has authority.
Well, I guess you and the aldermen are going to really look at the final numbers and do a little horse trading or something like that.
Well,
'Cause it,
all we can do is set the bottom line of the budget, and then it's up to the school department to a school board to
work out the details. huh?
yes.
Well, you have other problems. The heroin problem's a big one, and I know something came out about the chief of police looking for some money from what do they call it, the fund that they get for
Yes.
capturing some of these dope.
So, as everybody has read, I'm sure, we have a problem with heroin and an opioid addiction in the city, substance misuse, substance abuse. Certainly, we're seeing many, many ODs, something we never had before. For example, in January, there were 31 ODs, recorded incidents in the city where someone responded and found, a person in an OD situation. There were 2 people who actually died from ODs in January. So this is a public health epidemic that we have to move aggressively to try to ameliorate. On the city level, I think we're trying to improve through coordination and communication, better prevention efforts, teaching parents and kids the dangers of drug abuse and the signs of it. Also, more treatment. There are many people who, when they want to finally get into a treatment program, they can't, especially if they are not able to pay $30,000, down for that. Of course, law enforcement is an issue. The police department is doing a good job, but the supply of heroin is very large, and there is the step of recovery post-treatment. After you've been through a treatment program, people need support for a period of time, usually quite a long period of time, from peers to 12-step programs and other things to help them to get their life back to normal. Now, the thing you mentioned as far as the police chief speaking about the lost funds. So there is there's a fund that is composed of money derived from assets, drug-related assets that have been sold. So the so-called drug forfeiture fund. So this would be if a person was involved in the drug trade and their car was seized. So that gets sold and that goes into this drug forfeiture fund. Those funds are collected nationally and then distributed to the communities where, proportionally to where the seizures were made. This only applies if you're involved with a federal task force, series of arrests, which Nashua always is. They've made many arrests through the so-called federal task force. So Nashua has about $400,000 coming to it from the drug forfeiture fund, the National Drug Forfeiture Fund. So it turns out that Congress decided to raid the fund and took $1.2 billion out of the fund, leaving no money there. So for Nashua, this is critical because, as the chief says, the narcotics unit is largely funded with these forfeiture funds. The city pays the police officer's salary, but everything else connected with the narcotics unit, the overtime, maybe the buy money, the undercover cars, an apartment that gets rented for surveillance equipment, everything else is paid for by these drug forfeiture funds. So it is a big loss to the city that was imposed by Congress when it raided this fund. So we are trying to work, Nashua and other communities, are trying to work with our congressional delegation to get that money restored so that we can continue with the anti-narcotics activities, the anti-drug efforts that the police department is engaged in.
I imagine that all the cities here in New Hampshire, but also throughout the country, must be yelling pretty loud.
Any communities that are involved in, and it probably tends to be the larger communities, but that are involved in the federal task force, is eligible for the funds. So there's a federal task force. There are federal agents, DE agents, New Hampshire police, like from the state police, but also Nashua, Manchester. And the point of the federal task force is that they can work across, under federal authority, they can work across state lines. So were Nashua just on its own, it can't go down to Lawrence and arrest anyone. But if you are working together with the federal government, you can have an operation that works across the Massachusetts and New Hampshire line, which is very important because the main source of heroin, the main source is up from usually Lawrence, but usually from the south.
Well, good luck on getting that money.
Well,
I
we
guess
need that
certainly
money
need
back.
Yeah.
We want, the police department is doing a really good job in terms of making arrests, they make the point, and they're right, that we're not going to arrest ourselves out of the heroin public health epidemic, but certainly law enforcement and cracking down as much as we possibly can on anyone involved in the heroin trade is, a big part of it.
Well, you talking about the police department working with others, they work both with the Board of Education, I imagine, with the school kids and have some kind of joint program, or some of the non-profit organizations in the city?
One thing that the drug forfeiture funds are used for is the police department periodically hires a drug counselor type of person, a person who can, an inspiring type of person who inspiring communicator who can come into the public schools and talk to kids about drugs. That's paid for by the police department using these drug forfeiture funds. I think, of course, in both the high schools, there is a school resource officer. They are certainly engaged with the kids at all times.
What about the local organizations? That they provide that ongoing support for some of the people who are recovering from?
We need more. We have Keystone Hall, which is a treatment facility, I think the best in New Hampshire. It's out on Amherst Street. But there is a shortage, a lack of a recovery center or enough recovery capacity for people who would like to continue to, after they've gotten back, to their home, back to their job, but still they need support. We need to make sure that recovery services are increased.
Is that tied up with some of the mental health programs that we have for the state?
There's
because you read about that too, that we've had a little problem with handling that money.
Yes.
Unfortunate, but I was just wondering whether that's affecting you also.
Certainly it is. There's been a cutback at the state level on mental health assistance, and New Hampshire has gone from at least in some years ago, was considered to be the best state for mental health medical treatment. Now far down the list. So
well, the current budget had a 15% increase in that particular area.
That's good.
And the HSS audit showed that they weren't able to handle that big increase. That was a big increase for them, apparently, and they weren't able to handle it. And does that come down to you too, or is it their program separate from yours?
It mostly comes to healthcare providers.
Okay.
One area that we really need to stress, I think, is in terms of the heroin epidemic. The Medicaid expansion is important because many of the people who do not have $30,000 to put down, and once someone becomes hooked on heroin, often they don't have $30,000. It's all gone for other things like heroin, and so they become eligible. They're able to enroll in a treatment program because they're Medicaid eligible, and therefore many of the people who do get treatment, even though there's a shortage of beds now, are paid for through the Medicaid. And if the Medicaid expansion were rolled back, things would be even worse than they are now, in the sense that there aren't enough treatment beds now. There would even be less, or the beds would be there, but the people couldn't pay for them. So it would reduce the amount of drug treatment available. So in terms of our heroin epidemic, it's very important that the Medicaid expansion that's being considered by the legislature be passed.
I brought up that example of the audit report because that's one of the arguments that people are saying, maybe we don't extend it or expand it, maybe just extend it, which is a little bit different until they get the ability to handle the money that's there properly. But we'll see how that works out, because that's right now in finance, and they're going to look at it in greater detail than the HHS did look at it. What about some of the other medical needs that are in the city for refugees or poor?
Well, the city, the city health department provides basic public health, meaning a lot of education and some basic services, immunization, some early childhood screenings and things like that. But basic health care, the city is not engaged in providing like primary health care for people. For that, they might go to one of the hospitals, if they have a physician, their primary care physician, to Lamprey Health, or for dental to the dental connection. So the city's not engaged in the
that's not
delivering
a big
basic service
situation for your city.
Not really, no.
Okay. Well, one of the big things you're emphasizing is your economic development plan. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, we need, of course, to grow our economy in a number of ways. We have to, as mayor, I want to focus on the long-term health of Nashua's economy. So first, we want to make sure that we grow more jobs and support the employers we have, particularly in the area of technology, where I think things have been going very well for us over the last few years. We have a deep reservoir of technology talent, knowledge in Nashua. So we want to, and we've seen tech industries grow in the South End quite significantly on Simon Street downtown in the last few years, and we want to make sure that we support that and make sure that continues. Second, we need rail service, and I'll speak to you more about that later maybe, but we need to bring rail service to the city to add jobs and to make Nashua, New Hampshire more attractive to the younger generation. We need to support, make sure that they stay here and we can attract the young people. And for the businesses that have jobs that they're having trouble filling because they want an engineer who's out of school from one of the Boston schools, for example, and they want, like the industry Dine, this company Dine in downtown Manchester. We have the same kind of thing in Nashua. So they want to bring employees up, and to these employees they're trying to attract, usually young people. The young people are very interested in having rail, and so we need rail to make sure that in the future we are as attractive as we possibly can for the next generation. We also need to, of course, work to improve our schools. That's really, I think, part of our economic development initiatives, in the sense that employers need qualified people, good students coming out of school. We need a workforce development initiative, working with schools, with colleges, and with industry to make sure that we are producing the qualified people that our businesses need, and to make sure that people coming out of school have the qualifications, have the expertise and the education they need to be able to fit well into the workplace. And finally, we need to focus on downtown. I think we can bring housing downtown, which will help to expand the number of residents, will help all of our downtown businesses. Today, but we have definitely, some challenges, but also some successes. For example, today I went to see the R.J. Finley building, which is the so-called, what we used to call the Pink Palace, the old Indian Head 7-story bank building on Temple Street. Well, when they bought that building in 2011 or 12, there was virtually no one in the building. Now, they've been able to fill that building with 400 to 500 employees, a couple of significant tech businesses, Triangle Credit is taking over part of the building. So there's a major downtown success, which maybe hasn't gotten as much of attention as it should have, but I think it's important that people know that there's a lot of success going on downtown.
Maybe we get our newspaper to do a little better job of publicity or something.
Well,
some of that
I mean,
stuff.
they write about things and report on good developments, but people are busy, so a single newspaper story.
Well, it is a little bit, but sometimes, those stories get picked up, and looking at if you get, Nashua is here, but greater Nashua includes a lot more, and you want to be able to bring those people in as well, because that sort of has a synergy just to show that you're a developing technology center.
Correct.
You have a good, community college right in town that's doing providing workers. You have an excellent charter school that I understand is doing all sorts of wonderful things. I do get them. I see them in the paper.
And I think people around New Hampshire should understand that as we are able to grow the tech businesses in southern New Hampshire, we do a lot of things for the state. Number one, expand the tax base for state revenues, but also provide jobs for people in New Hampshire that don't live right here in Nashua. For example, we know that 25% of Nashua's workforce commutes south, but in the same way, people from further north commute to Nashua. So we have a big net inflow during the day. People commute to BAE, people commute to the South End, people commute to the businesses at the Pink Palace we were talking about, to the R.J. Finley building. And these people may come from Bedford or Manchester or Deering or Candia. So growing the economy down here helps New Hampshire in general.
How tight are you with the Chamber of Commerce here and in Manchester, and how coordinated is some of your efforts in this area?
Well, of course, now I've only been in office for a few weeks, so but I think it's important that we work closely with the Chamber. They've done a good job of advocating for economic growth, and I'm sure we can, I'm sure that we can work carefully with them, closely with them in the future.
Okay. Has the state been helpful in any way? Because one of the things we are trying to do up there is to get them a little bit more active.
The chambers,
not the chamber, no, the development part of DRED.
Oh, they are, I think, helpful. Yes, they are helpful, and we've been talking with them about some different ways that maybe we could use federal funds down here. I just met today with the economic development director from the University Extension, UNH Extension, and there are other broader resources. For example, also today with a guy from the Greater Monadnock Economic Development Center. They are very good at financing development projects, and I think we can get some expertise and some helps there. We were talking about how possibly we could move forward on an arts center using some creative approaches towards tax credits and the like. So I think there is help around New Hampshire that we can use in Nashua to help with our economic development efforts.
Well, get to the RailX part of the program.
Carl, as you know, you're on the House Public Works Committee. So what's happened is that the governor, in her 10-year transportation plan, which your committee is considering, has included $4 million to take the next steps, necessary steps to towards rail, to further define the project and to do the work necessary to qualify later for a federal subsidy if that's the way it goes. And this money that's in the governor's 10-year transportation plan does not cost the state a dime, because $3.2 million are federal funds, which are limited in their application to, and at least according to New Hampshire DOT, cannot be really repurposed in any meaningful way. And $800,000 of what they call toll credits, which are basically just credit, it's not even money, given to the state. The federal government's basically saying you can use these credits and treat it as money for the purposes of local match. So $3.2 million of federal funds, 800,000 in these toll credits. The state has $250 million supply of toll credits. So with this $4 million, we can move forward with the defining the project and qualifying for federal funds. Now, to me, I'm down here. This is, a no-brainer. I mean, it doesn't cost the state any money. We're taking another step forward on a project that will be great for our economy, and which our city, community, our business community, and our people support overwhelmingly. And I did go to the committee, as you know, and I was a little bit surprised that there are some members of the committee who seem to be reluctant to, use free money, basically, federal money that doesn't take any state dollars, to make this next step. So we really need everyone on the Public Works Committee, and I know you are a very influential and effective advocate on that committee. So we need you to really fight for that money at the House
Well, we'll
Public
see.
Works.
That's coming up next week, not a couple of weeks from now.
But I hope we can count on your support, right?
Well, yeah, we're looking at how this is going to be put together. But there is competition.
Yes.
Okay? We have a lot of people on that committee who want to see the roads fixed at other places or bridges, and if they can somehow switch some of that money, they'll look to do that.
I know with your skill and your expertise that you'll be able to prevent that from happening.
Well, one of the we're worried too about whether Massachusetts is going to come together with that, and you think they're ready to really go?
Yes, I mean they've been extending their T system, the MBTA. They extended to Worcester recently, over the last number of years. Now Worcester has, and one person we're getting in touch with, because Worcester experienced, and Grafton, there's a station there just before Worcester and Worcester. Those two communities have experienced a major economic benefit from the fact that the MBTA system was
Extended out.
Extended. There was a little bit, but it was greatly expanded, so now they have regular train service. I heard today, and I want to track this down, that Dover has seen an incredible impact from the Downeaster.
Yeah.
So I think if we begin to educate people in the state legislature who, we're more familiar with this than many people else in other parts of the state. So I think if we begin to, through the business community and others, to educate people, to give them the examples of the really benefits that this has brought elsewhere, that we can convince them that this is good for the state.
I think those two examples, if you can give me information, that's going to help my arguments.
Well, we'll be coming up with that. Okay. And another thing, here's another GE. Now I'm saying that connecting our economy, especially our tech, hopefully our biotech, other biosciences, connecting our economy with Boston is a very wise step to take, because it will grow our economy. Boston is the economic engine of New England. Now GE, one of the biggest corporations in the world, one of the smartest companies in the world, very involved in advanced manufacturing, they just moved to Boston, or they've announced they are moving to Boston, because they want to be closer to places like MIT, Harvard, and everything that's going on in the Boston economy. I believe that we in New Hampshire should take a lesson from GE. There's a reason they're moving there. I think we also want to firm up our connections with the Boston economy. Now, there might be some people in New Hampshire who think, Boston is something we want to stay away from.
There may be some people like that, but I think they also left because of the taxes that Connecticut.
But there are taxes in Massachusetts. So, what we can offer here in New Hampshire is we can develop a stronger connection with a very strong economy down there, which will help our industries here, but we can live the New Hampshire lifestyle. So I think we can, we can have our cake and eat it too if we are smart about what we do.
And we have to tie it all together in a good package with a big bow on it so that we can see, so people can easily see the benefit, the
Yes.
long-term benefits.
Yes.
I happened to grow up in Long Island, New York during the time and all that expansion happened. And they have a lot of companies now in Long Island.
Yes.
So that was, and along the rail line. So I understand that part of it. But convincing people that this is good for people who are still, worried about the potholes in their roads and the bridges that are going to fall down or whatever.
Well, we want to save those potholes and those bridges, but this is a decision that will have an impact over the next century. So, I don't think should turn our back on something which is going to have that type of long-term economic effect. I mean, someone could have argued, well, the Transcontinental Railroad, that was, that costs money, and oh my God, if we didn't have that, I could fix my dirt road over here or something. But not that that's an exact analogy, but the Transcontinental Railroad was great for the country, tied the country together. The Erie Canal was great for the economy of the East when that was built. I mean, all these transportation projects have ultimately a great economic effect.
Maybe you know the answer to this, because one of the arguments that I heard is that Nashua had it all put together, the money and everything, and sometime around 2007 or 2000 anyway, and they skipped that to join the extension program all the way to Concord. And
I don't know about that. I wasn't there in 2007.
Well, I wasn't either, but that's why I thought maybe somebody could fill me in on that, because
if that happened, that was a mistake, but I'm not so sure of that.
Okay, I have to find out, but we've run out of time, unfortunately.
Well, we have. It's a pleasure to see you, Carl, and I look forward to our next discussion.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll keep in touch with you, and if there's any big developments, we'll make room for you.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.